Meanwhile, the president tried to soothe investor fears over a spiking trade war with China. The president posted on Truth Social this weekend, "All will be fine." Vice President J.D. Vance echoed the sentiments. However, they are ready for a fight and will push back at China's aggression. Here's Vice President J.D. Vance with me on Sunday Morning Futures, telling me that they will keep the boot on the neck. Friday, the president announced an additional 100% tariff on Chinese goods, along with export controls on critical software beginning on November 1st. That was in response and retaliation for Beijing a week ago, putting new restrictions on rare earth exports. China wanting further negotiations, it claimed, warning that it will retaliate if the U.S. follows through with higher tariffs. Joining me now in a First on Fox Business interview is Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for being here this morning.
Maria, good to be with you.
What a day to join us, Secretary. We are waiting on President Trump to give these incredible remarks from Jerusalem, but we want to get your take on how you will respond to this new aggression from Beijing.
Well, Maria, first of all, this is what American leadership looks like. I'm always proud to be in the Trump administration, but I told President Trump yesterday that this is next level, and I have never been prouder of an American president and what he's done. You know, America is back on the world stage. He is leading via peace through strength. And this is when the United States of America gets involved, puts their mind to it, and you get leadership like President Trump. This is what we get. It's a solution to a problem decades, centuries old. And we've got the hostages home, and this is the start. As far as the situation with China, Maria, this is China versus the rest of the world. They announced these export controls that are going to go into effect next month, and we have aggressively pushed back against them. We're not sure where this came from, why the Chinese have decided to do it now, because you can see that that the United States is led by a man of peace, Donald Trump, and China. This was a provocative move. We have substantially de-escalated. President Trump said that the tariffs would not go into effect until November 1st. He will be meeting with Party Chair Xi in Korea. I believe that meeting will still be on. There has been substantial communication over the weekend, as opposed to right out of the blocks when the Chinese did not respond to any of our inquiries. World Bank, IMF week here in D.C., and so there will also be lots of staff level meetings between the United States and our Chinese counterparts.
Yes, I mean, if China is going to be putting these restrictions on rare earth minerals, this is going to affect the whole world, right? I mean, these are very important items that are needed not just for the United States, but across the world. We need them, however, for our military. So can you pull any other levers to stop China from defending these rare earth export controls? And what can you do in America to ensure that we have independence and can refine these items ourselves?
Well, Maria, as I said, this is China versus the world. They have pointed a bazooka at the supply chains and the industrial base of the entire free world. And, we're not going to have it. China is a command and control economy. They are neither going to command nor control us. We are going to assert our sovereignty in various ways. We have already been in touch with the allies. We will be meeting with them this week. And I expect that we will get substantial global support from the Europeans, from the Indians, from the democracies in Asia. And we will not let these export restrictions and monitoring go on. And I believe that China is open to discussion on this. And if they're not, we have substantial levers on our on our side that we can pull, and the equivalent and probably even more aggressive than they have pulled on the rare earths. We don't want to do it. Again, as I said, this is why President Trump put the date down for the tariffs and for any sanctions or items that we will withhold as November 1st. Here in the U.S., we have an all-hands-on-deck policy. This is something that we didn't get here in a day. This has been the failure of previous administrations over decades not to see this strategic whole.
Yes, but I want to get your take on what those levers are. What kind of leverage does the United States have? And Secretary, I want to refer back to what President Trump sent out back in February at the beginning of his second term, and that is the America First investment policy, which I have in my hand right now. And the America First investment policy reads this: economic security is national security. The PRC, the Chinese government, does not allow the United States companies to take over their critical infrastructure, and the U.S. should not allow the PRC to take over U.S. critical infrastructure. They also go on to say, through China's military-civil fusion strategy, the PRC increases the size of its military-industrial complex by compelling civilian Chinese companies and research institutions to support its military and intelligence activity. Some of those companies that do that trade on our exchanges. You have a huge lever to pull right here to take off those Chinese companies from our exchanges and not give them the ability to sell their shares to perhaps, in some cases, unwitting investors. Will you pull that economic lever?
Maria, I can tell you, everything's on the everything's on the table. I am optimistic that this can be de-escalated, but we're willing to do whatever it takes and to adopt whatever posture it takes. And again, this is a global problem, and I think our global allies will follow us on this. We back in the summer, early summer, we were forced to put 12 countermeasures on China that were highly affected from natural resources that are used in the making of plastics to jet engines and parts. I believe that they substantially had to ground a large part of their civilian fleet. So we have plenty of straight brute force countermeasures that we can pull. We have 300, 400,000 Chinese students studying here, as opposed to 800,000 American students, as opposed to 800 American students who study in China. So, that's substantially imbalanced. Again, so lines of communication have been opened. I expect that during IMF World Bank Week, we will have meetings. I hope to meet with my Chinese counterpart, the vice premier, in Asia before the two leaders meet. But the U.S. will not be deterred here. And as I said, this is China versus the world. And Chinese have a different business model than we do, but there is no business model that shows it is a good idea to harm your customers. China is the largest exporter in the world, and they are dependent on trade. We do not want to decouple. We want to de-risk. And this de-risking, the critical minerals is part of it, semiconductor independence is part of it, bringing our pharmaceutical industry back on shore, and everything that President Trump has done with the America First agenda. So, we don't want to decouple, but China, when they send out messages like this is a decoupling message.